Twice in the last couple of weeks, Eric Bolling, my former colleague at the Fox News Channel, has been front and center in this. He spoke yesterday. Very heartbreaking to hear his story, how he lost his son who was in college. And we welcome Eric to the program. Eric, I'd rather talk politics with you and hear that your son is doing well. When I heard, I've talked to you a lot throughout this. So it's devastating.
Yeah, and believe me, Sean, I would much rather be talking politics with you as well. And before we go, I just got to tell you, the president has been phenomenal on a personal level. He's had unbelievable empathy for this cause. He's called me the day after Eric passed, and he called us on Thanksgiving. It really kind of helped. But also, Sean, your listeners need to know how good you've been as well. You've just been stellar. You've been such a good friend to me. My wife and I just love you for and appreciate everything you've done. We were in the depths of, hell, really, because we lost our only child. And you called and said, hey, Bolling, get up and come meet me and talk to me. And you've been phenomenal. So, yes, you guys have been, you and Trump have been amazing to me. President Trump, I participated in that opioid summit. There were 9 cabinet secretaries there. There were 2 generals, Surgeon General and the Attorney General, both there. And President Trump was there and Melania Trump. And it showed that he really does care about this. This is an issue that affects everyone. About a week ago or so, I spoke at CPAC on this issue. I didn't think it was going to be a big crowd, but Matt Schlapp put me on, and we were on the main stage. And I got to tell you, the room was packed, and Sean, I got to tell you, after that speech, for the next 36 hours, I was at CPAC. Literally hundreds and hundreds of young people, predominantly young people, came up to me saying, "Hey, I lost a friend," or "I'm worried about my brother." It's a national epidemic, but it's affecting very, very young people. People under the age of 30. You're most likely to die of an opioid overdose than any other form of accidental death in America. More than guns, more than car accidents, more than anything. So it's an issue that I think on the right, let's do a little politics with it. On the right, there's an opportunity to reach out to young people and say, we conservatives have a heart. We care about this thing. And Donald Trump, frankly, is going to throw a lot of money at solving the crisis from both the supply, which we know about, who's overselling, overprescribing. Are we bringing in drugs illegally from China, which is how my son died. He died of an accidental overdose when he thought he was taking a Xanax pill that thousands or millions of pills are taken on college campuses every year for college students who are anxiety-ridden about class. He took a Xanax that was a street Xanax. It had fentanyl in it, and it ended up killing him because it was illegal, and the fentanyl is really strong. So that's the supply side, but also the demand side. We have to teach people, kids, that this stuff can kill you.
Let me for those people that haven't heard you tell your story, look, Eric, I know you, and it's painful to know everything that you've been through. I've watched it. I can't think of anything worse that happens to any person or individual in life when they lose their child, and I know how close you were to your son. Walk us through everything that happened that day. Yeah.
So June, it was Father's Day weekend, and my wife said, hey, why don't you go spend Father's Day weekend with our son in Boulder, Colorado. He was just 2 weeks. He was into his sophomore year. In June, it was the summer. So I go out there. We have a beautiful weekend, 3-day weekend. We enjoyed each other, and we share clothes. We were so close, Sean, as many fathers might understand. A few weeks later, we got the phone call. We're driving home from a dinner, and my wife and I, and she was driving, and the phone about 10:30 rings, and as a parent, your the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and I answer the phone as a young man saying, Mr. Bolling, call Kayla right now. And I said, what's going on? He said, just call Kayla. So I called the number he sent me. Kayla was a young lady he was kind of on and off dating. She answers the phone, and she's crying. And as a father, I went right there. My mind just went right to it. And I said, is he alive? And she was crying. She said, no, Mr. Bolling, he's not. And my world fell apart at that moment. Adrian heard the conversation, my wife. And she was in the driver's seat of the car. We were pulled over the side of the road. She opened the door and literally fell onto the roadway and was laying on the road crying. I picked her up, and we sat on the curb and cried for an hour trying to collect our thoughts. You go as a father, as a parent, especially someone who had been in media, we have pretty much an idea of what our next week are going to be like, or a month or a year. At that moment, everything was a blur to me. I had no idea even how to walk again. But we got on a plane the next morning and went to Colorado. And the hardest thing that a parent can do is meet a coroner about what happened to your child, and in our case, our only child. It was the most devastating moment of our life. And like I said, President Trump had just called a minute after I met the coroner, so it was helpful. But that's how it started. And it's been 6 months now almost. And all I really want to do, people are talking to me, what do you want to do? Do you want to come back? Look, God is lighting this path for me right now. I don't know why he did it, and I've had a great relationship with the Lord, but frankly, it's strained, or let's call it, it's complicated right now, because I'm not sure why it happened. But for some reason, I'm becoming the voice for parents who are going through this or who don't want to go through this. And hopefully maybe we save a few lives. And have the recommendation, Sean, have the conversation about opioid, how dangerous they are. Tell them it's in perfect shape, happy kid, perfectly adjusted, and in one pill that he thought he was going to take to relax, after a busy school week, ended up killing him. So have these discussions, and maybe we save a life or two.
Well, I don't think you're talking about saving a life or two. I mean, I think institutionally we can change everybody's mindset on it, and people have got to understand it's not like having a beer, and yeah. when you're buying drugs, we have pharmaceutical companies. We have, and to be honest, I think at some point we've got to address, how people are getting addicted. You go in for an operation, and I know doctors and lawyers and highly successful professional people and businessmen and women, and, they go in, they have that one procedure. The next thing you know, they're addicted to these drugs, and they can't get off them.
Yeah. And that's the legal side of it, Sean. You're 100% right. It's that.
No. And then that leads to the illegal side of it, because then the doctor cuts you off and you go to the streets and you don't know what you're getting.
Well, look what also happens on even the legal side of it. Joe Manchin talks about a town of 1,000 people. Joe Manchin talks about a town in West Virginia where 1,000 people populate the town, but 9 million pills were being delivered into that town last year. And they're all legal. The big pharma sends them to distributors. They distribute them into that town. And guess what happens? Then people in the town send them elsewhere. So that's when it goes from legal to illegal. And think about this. I was doing a radio show the other night, and the guy called in and said, I have chronic pain, and I take 7 to 8 pills per day of Oxycontin or whatever he was taking. He said, but the doctor prescribes a 30-day supply. So he's getting 200, 250 pills, sometimes 300 pills at a time. Think about that for a second. If people in their medicine cabinets have 300 pills, that's very, very tempting for a young person to go in and take some and maybe go sell them or trade them or do whatever they're going to do with it. So it's a multi-pronged epidemic, but the problem is it's killing so many people, Sean, 75 people per day in America. If 64,000 people died last year like they did of opioid, of anything else like waterborne or foodborne in our food system, we would be doing a lot more. And there's time to do more, but the good news is President Trump is on top of it.
Let me ask you this. What do you say to those parents that, it can't happen to me, it can't happen to me? Because you actually used the line, and I was sitting there, I'm like, wow, that is powerful, because that's every case, isn't it?
You're 100% right, and I've kind of coined this term. It's called Not My Kid syndrome. And the only reason why I know about this is because on my Twitter account, it's become kind of this clearinghouse for opioids. People come and tell their stories. Now, what I've noticed is a lot of people have come to me and say, hey, my daughter was a straight A student, very popular, or my son was captain of the soccer team, or he's valedictorian, but they're dead. And the point is this. If you think your kid is too smart or too athletic or too good of a person,
forget it
and have the conversation. Yep, forget it. 100% right.
It's so scary. Well, listen, I know you've been through so much pain, and I know out of this pain, it's amazing the impact in a short period of time that you're beginning to have on this issue, and I know this is only the beginning for you, and certainly your relationship with the president has helped him also, get deeply involved. And this was a campaign issue, but it became very personal for him because you've known him for a long time. And, you said earlier, if we could save 1 or 2 lives, it's worth it. Absolutely. If we can save 1,000 or 10,000, it would really be worth it because, the numbers of deaths we're seeing every day and overdoses every single day, it's shocking. It shocks the soul. And as a country, we've got to fix this, and we can't. We're letting our kids down if we continue not to solve this problem.
And it really is, and you highlight a very, very important point. This is a young person's scourge right now. I mean, a lot of people our age, Sean, we talk about it and we see it as a problem and an epidemic. These kids I talk to are terrified of it. They're terrified of what it's doing to their friends and their families. So it's something we need to create more awareness of. Because you probably talking about it.
All right, I'm going to let you go. We're losing Eric here. Eric Bolling, always in our thoughts and prayers. I know a lot of people are hearing you. I really do. There's I think it's on Showtime or Netflix or one of them. It's at Showtime. Showtime has this new series. It's called The Trade. I urge you to watch it. And there are many other. National Geographic has some. If you go back in their archives and on demand, and you can see all of these things. Just amazing.